Yuhayan watched in shock as a woman sat strapped to a chair, her body jolting from the electric currents running through her. He had thought this was all just a game, but the reality was far more horrifying. The pink-haired woman, Sua, barely managed to utter Yuhayan's name, her voice strained and pained. She couldn't take it anymore. Her strength was failing her. Tears streamed down Yuhayan's face as he realized the gravity of their situation. He had believed it was just an immersive game that he would be able to escape from soon. Sua whispered a sorry, her voice barely audible. Sua's body went limp in the chair, her strength completely drained. Yuhayan screamed out in anguish, calling her name, but it was too late. As Yuhayan's head slowly dropped, he realized that this might be the end for him as well. Strapped to the chair, he felt his strength waning, his hope fading. Just as Yuhayan's head dropped in defeat, a sudden voice echoed in his mind, insisting that he had to keep going. Like a motivational poster come to life, but way less annoying. Yuhayan let out a scream that could rival a teen fangirling at a concert. Ugh, no, he chanted internally, like a broken record stuck on the worst part of a song. Tears streamed down his face as he begged for everyone not to leave him behind. Strapped to the chair, he looked like he was ready to audition for a tragic drama, and nailing it. Yuhayan's appearance was a total mess, like he had just lost a fight with a pack of wild raccoons. Dreadful didn't even begin to cover it. But let's rewind a bit. There was this virtual reality game that was literally topping the charts globally. Think dimensional portals, supernatural abilities, and Invasion Battlesit was like the Avengers meets Fortnite, and users were absolutely obsessed. Yuhayan, still looking like he'd been through a raccoon brawl, got talked into trying the game by a friend. She mentioned something called Reverse Planet, and next thing he knew, he was trapped in this wild, otherworldly mess. Cue the dramatic visuals of worlds colliding. It was like someone took the universe, put it in a blender, and hit smoothie mode. Back to the present, a mysterious voice congratulated Subject 62, whatever that means. A man with a gas mask, probably not the fashion statement of the year, announced that Yuhayan was one step closer to becoming the Transcendent of Project Transcendence. Sounds fancy, right? Turns out, Project Transcendence was this massive research project that sacrificed thousands of people to create a single transcendent. Dark, much? And if you thought that was dark, it gets worse. Innocent people were kidnapped and turned into lab rats, forced into all kinds of messed up experiments like electric torture, chemical trials, and body modifications. Absolute nightmare fuel. Meanwhile, some guy in a hood and gas mask is just casually dragging a dead body like it's trash day, barking orders to burn the evidence and lock up the survivors. Chill, much? Yuhayan, our main man, is sitting there internalizing all this horror, and you can just see the rage building up inside him. He's thinking he's never going to forgive these monsters. And boom, next panel, Yuhayan's looking like he's ready to go full rampage mode. You do not want to be on the receiving end of that glare. Suddenly, alarms start blaring like crazy. Test subjects are on the loose, and everyone's being told to arm themselves. Oh, someone's in for a world of hurt. Chaos erupts as escaped patients bolt down the hallway, their freedom so close they could taste it. The exit was right there. Just a few more steps and they'd be out of this nightmare. They kept sprinting, hearts pounding with the rhythm of their footsteps. Just a little further and they'd be home free, or so they thought. But then, like a glitch in a video game, they came to a sudden halt. Their momentum screeched to a stop, and their hopes crashed right along with it. A massive red-haired guard stood before them, blocking the stairs like an impenetrable wall. He smirked, clearly unimpressed by their escape attempt. Looks like the party was over before it even started. With a slow, menacing approach, the guard closed the distance, his presence alone enough to make their hearts sink. This wasn't going to end well. The squad wasn't about to go down without a fight. One guy stepped up, shouting to Yuhayan to cover their backs while they handled the guard. Classic last stand energy. They moved in on the red-haired man, who was clearly the boss of this mess. No time for hesitation, just pure, desperate action. Yuhayan wasn't playing around. He had the red-haired man in a chokehold, and it was clear this wasn't going to be a friendly chat. The red-haired man struggled, gasping for his last breath. The room was thick with tension, and the outcome wasn't looking great for him. Yuhayan finally let go, standing up to survey the aftermath. Bodies everywhere, definitely not the vibe he was going for. The weight of it all hit him hard. The tears started flowing. Yuhayan muttered to himself, not again, like he'd seen this movie one too many times and wasn't here for the sequel. But then, something caught his eye. A voice called out his name, soft but clear. Yuhayan snapped to attention. What now? And then things got even weirder. Figures started rising from the dead bodies, like a zombie party no one asked for. Yuhayan was so not ready for this. Yuhayan was just standing there, minding his own business, when suddenly, the figures started screaming his name like he was the last slice of pizza at a party. Fast forward 3 years, and Yuhayan was still dealing with the aftermath. 2 soldiers were shooting at him, yelling for him to stay back. But Yuhayan wasn't having it. He was on a mission to avenge the people he loved, and he wasn't about to let a couple of bullets get in his way. With some quick reflexes, Yuhayan dodged the shots like he was in the Matrix. Seriously, Neo who? Then, in a flash, he sliced through the 2 soldiers like they were made of butter. Yuhayan was on a roll, killing and killing some more. It was like a gruesome video game, and he was racking up the high score. One of the soldiers tried to make a run for it. But let's be real. There was no escaping Yuhayan's wrath. Yuhayan wasn't messing around. With a flick of his knife, he made sure the soldier's escape attempt was over before it even began. Standing there, covered in scars, Yuhayan looked like he just walked out of an action movie. But the cool factor was about to get a reality check. Suddenly, shadows started creeping in, surrounding him like they had a vendetta. Yuhayan's mind echoed with a chilling thought the revenge never ended. Sweat started pouring down his face as the weight of his fate hit him. How long did he have to keep this up? Was this really going to be his life until he kicked the bucket? Just when he thought things couldn't get any weirder, a status bar suddenly popped up out of nowhere. Yuhayan was stunned, literally. He stood there, frozen, as the unexpected interruption left him speechless. Just as Yuhayan was about to process what had just happened, a status bar popped up, declaring a special mission bug fixing by eliminating the director of the project. The reward? Returning to his original world. Yuhayan couldn't help but think, well, this just got real. Chaos unfolds as people are sprawled on the ground, writhing and screaming in agony. The vibe? Not great. A man who looks suspiciously like a former president is on his knees, looking up at 2 men approaching him. He questions their actions, reminding them that they've achieved everything and all that's left is glory. Drama alert. The director is in shock, still questioning why this is happening. Suddenly, a voice calls out his title, Project Transcendence Director. Plot twist incoming. Before he can react, he's grabbed by someone. Yikes, things just got real. A man looks on in disgust, asking if the director really doesn't know what's going on. The tension is palpable. The director slaps his hand out, telling Subject 81 to be quiet, saying he wasn't talking to him. Okay, someone's got a short fuse. The director then calls out to Mr. Beck, who responds with a cold, hard stare. Someone's not happy. The death stare intensifies as the title Project Transcendent Subject 62, alias Transcendent Yuhianbeek, flashes. Yikes, someone's got a fancy title and a serious glare. The director goes on about how Yuhayan is a true transcendent, the greatest success of Project Transcendence. Okay, someone's got a major ego. As Yuhayan's hand gets infused with something, the director offers him whatever he wants, saying he's not like the rest. Yuhayan simply replies that he doesn't need anything. Mic drop. The director looks like he's about to burst a bubble, shouting about how this doesn't end when he dies. Dramatic much? He warns Yuhayan that the League of Enterprises never lets an enemy who bares their teeth walk away. They'll come for him, his family, and even his comrades. Someone's got a serious grudge. The desk is slashed in half as the director declares them all dead. Well, that escalated quickly. The director gets slashed. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Yongjin gets blood splattered onto him. That's gonna stain. Yongjin was not having it, yelling about the blood all over him like it was the worst thing ever. And of course, he had to bring up the fact that the main character killed someone before he could get his questions answered. Classic Yongjin, always with the drama. But then he noticed the main character zoning out and couldn't help but ask what he was looking at. Suddenly, a message popped up saying the special mission was completed, and asking if he wanted to return to his world. Yuhayan was so ready to bounce out of there. You could practically see the excitement radiating off of him. Yuhayan got ready to press the button, thinking that once he did, it would all be over. But just as he was about to make his grand exit, some mysterious voices started calling out to him, asking where he thought he was going. The shadows began to appear out of nowhere, and the voices got more intense, asking if he had forgotten about them and what about the rest of them. Yuhayan must have been thinking, can't a guy catch a break? Things took a dark turn as the shadows surrounded Yuhayan, and the voices started begging him to kill them all, and to make it brutal. Yuhayan must have been wondering what he got himself into. Just as Yuhayan was lost in the chaos of his thoughts, a hand tapped his shoulder. Yongjin's voice cut through the noise, trying to snap him out of it. Yuhayan muttered about going back to his original world, but Yongjin wasn't having it. He shot back, still hung up on the whole original world thing, insisting Yuhayan had always been right there with him. With a quick click, Yuhayan confirmed something, telling the others before everything went blank. Suddenly, Yuhayan jolted awake in a bed, like he'd just woken up from the weirdest dream ever. He sat up, looking around, totally confused. Was he really back in his room? No way. Yuhayan grabbed his phone, trying to figure out if this was real life or just some next-level glitch. How much time had even passed? His mind was officially blown. Yuhayan stared at his phone, realizing it was still the same day he got sucked into the game. His mind was officially fried. He checked himself out, noticing his scars and muscles were gone. Time hadn't just flown, it had pulled a full-on Houdini act. It was like none of it had even happened, just a super vivid dream. But then, a flashback hit him like a truck. He saw himself slicing through enemies like a boss, the memories flooding back in high definition. He heard desperate pleas for help, voices begging not to die. The memories were way too real to be just a dream. The director's voice echoed in his mind, warning that they would come for him, his family, and even his comrades. Yuhayan's heart dropped. Nope, it definitely wasn't a dream. Yuhayan tapped his head, trying to process everything. Those 10 years he spent in that other world were absolutely real, no cap. Just as he was lost in thought, his phone started ringing, breaking the silence. Yuhayan answered the call, and the name on the screen seemed familiar, like a distant memory resurfacing. Neon Zhong. Where had he heard that name before? Before he could even say hello, a voice yelled through the phone, asking why he hadn't been answering. Yuhayan was taken aback. Had he really forgotten something important? Neon reminded him they were meeting that night and said she'd send the location. Yuhayan tried to respond, but the call ended abruptly, leaving him confused. That voice, it triggered something in his memory. He knew that voice, but from where? Looking at his phone screen, it hit him. Neon was his closest friend from university. Memories started flooding back, and he couldn't believe he had forgotten. Yuhayan's mind raced as memories flooded back. Neon was the one who introduced him to Reverse Planet. A sudden thought struck him. Could she have known about this and set him up? Nah, probably not, he thought, shaking off the idea. He decided he should go see her and find out. He found himself at the entrance of a shop, the familiar surroundings sparking more memories. As he looked around, he heard a familiar voice calling out to him. There she was, Neon, waving at him with a bright smile. She greeted him enthusiastically, clearly happy to see him after so long. They sat down, and Neon reminded him that they hadn't met since the semester ended. She asked if he wanted something to drink, but he declined, saying not today. Though internally, Yuhayan was already considering getting drunk right then and there. The weight of the memories and the sudden realization were getting to him. As they caught up, the aroma of food cooking filled the air, providing a comforting backdrop to their reunion. Neon asked if he had tried Reverse Planet yet, mentioning that he had at least promised to play through the tutorial. The question hung in the air as Yuhayan took a bite of his food, pondering how to respond. Yuhayan casually mentioned he made his character and watched the intro, expecting a pat on the back. But Neon's blank stare turned into a full-on "excuse me. What?" moment. She was not having it. Neon's voice hit a pitch that could shatter glass. Seriously, Yuhayan? He hadn't even played it at all. Yuhayan flinched like he just got caught skipping the final boss. Yuhayan's mind spiraled. This was all her fault. She was the reason he spent 10 years in that gaming hell. Thanks a lot, Neon. But Neon wasn't done. She reminded him of his promise to be a regular guest on her stream. She even brought up his old leaderboard glory on Coliseum. A small stream like hers would blow up if he showed even a fraction of his skill. Yuhayan's thoughts got cut off like a laggy stream. Oh right, she was some kind of game streamer. All that nagging to play with her suddenly made sense. Yuhayan looked at her, confused, like he just realized he'd been playing solo mode this whole time. But despite the chaos, Yuhayan couldn't help but enjoy the moment. It really felt like he was back, all thanks to her. Yuhayan started digging into the origins of Reverse Planet, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Turns out, the developers were based right in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. Classic tech vibes, right? But then reality hit him like a bad Wi-Fi signal. Even if he jet off to their headquarters, what could he really do? Roll up and drop the truth bomb that their game glitched him into another world? Yeah, they'd totally believe that. Not. And if they actually were responsible. Plot twist, that might be even worse. Who knows what they'd do to him? Maybe turn him into an NPC? No thanks. With a sigh, he leaned back, the weight of it all pressing down on him. This was some next-level drama he wasn't ready for. Just as he was about to throw in the towel and chalk it all up to a weird dream, someone wrapped their arms around him. Yuhayan felt a sense of comfort wash over him. Maybe it was time to let go and just vibe in this world where he belonged. An old friend stood there, a familiar face in the crowd, reminding him that this world was his reality now. Stepping through the gate, Yuhayan decided to give this whole normal life thing a shot, attending classes and pretending he didn't have the weight of 1,000 worlds on his shoulders. There he was, pencil in hand, trying to tackle a test like it was just another Tuesday. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Just when he thought he could blend in, a shadowy figure grabbed him, whispering about his reality like it was some kind of existential pop quiz. Yuhayan spun around, heart racing, only to find a bunch of clueless classmates, totally oblivious to the drama unfolding in his head. But plot twist, those classmates started pulling a shadow puff right before his eyes, morphing into creepy shadows faster than you can say, "What in the world?" The shadows started chanting like they were at some kind of dark concert, all about revenge and how he didn't belong. Talk about peer pressure. Yuhayan wasn't about to stick around for an encore. He dashed out of there like he was late for the most important meeting of his life. Yuhayan left everyone in the dust, their faces twisted in confusion like they'd just seen a ghost or maybe just a guy who really needed to dip out of there ASAP. He was out of breath, lungs burning like he'd just run a marathon. But there was no time to catch a break. Suddenly, a shadowy figure grabbed his shoulder, and a voice called out his name like it was some kind of spooky summons. Not cool. Yuhayan spun around and grabbed the guy's hand, asking if he was okay. But let's be real, he was the one looking like he'd seen a ghost. The student was shocked. Like, who wouldn't be when some guy suddenly grabs your hand out of nowhere? In a flash, Yuhayan pulled out a knife and slashed, because apparently he was in full-on survival mode now. Turns out it was all in his head. The student was like, "Dude, what are you even doing?" Yuhayan just stood there, sweating bullets, muttering about being startled. The student wasn't buying it, though. He said people had been talking about how Yuhayan had been acting all kinds of sus lately. And honestly, after that little knife incident, can't say they're wrong. Yuhayan casually opens a can, trying to play it cool like nothing's bothering him. But the weight of the conversation lingers, and he lets out a heavy sigh, the vibe suddenly shifting. Out of nowhere, shadows start creeping in, and a voice echoes his name, sending a chill down his spine. The shadows inch closer, the voice growing more insistent, urging him to come back. Suddenly, Neon pops into the scene, calling out his name like she means business. She takes one look at him and immediately clocks how rough he looks, asking what's been up with him lately. Yuhayan shakes his head, brushing it off like it's no big deal, but Neon isn't having it. She stands up, full of determination, telling him she's got his back no matter what. Yuhayan can't help but raise an eyebrow, teasing her about when she became his big sis. Neon announced she was heading back, leaving Yuhayan with a smile. But under the benches, shadows lurked because of course why wouldn't they? Yuhayan bid her farewell, his smile hiding the chaos that was about to unfold. Yuhayan turned his attention to a console, looking like he was about to enter some kind of code or something equally dramatic. Settling into the console, he muttered a yeah, like he was confirming something to himself. Then he dropped the bombshell, saying that at this rate it was no different from that world. Like what even is that world? Yuhayan made up his mind and declared he needed to go back. Like go back where? The suspense was killing, but he was already entering, leaving everyone in the dark. As the screen flickers to life, the words, "Welcome to Reverse Planet" pop up, inviting players into a world of unknown adventures. Our protagonist, Yuhayan, finds himself staring at his reflection, wondering how on earth he ended up inside the game. Like what even is this glitch? A prompt appears, asking if he wants to proceed with his current appearance. Yuhayan shrugs, figuring he might as well roll with it for now. Yuhayan decides to tackle the tutorial first because obviously he needs to get through the setup before he can do anything cool. The game announces the beginning of the initial ability setup. Yuhayan is prompted to select his first core element, with the reassurance that he can reset his abilities anytime. No pressure, right? Reverse Planet's ability system starts with choosing a core element. Yuhayan is about to dive into the mechanics, ready to figure out his game plan. Yuhayan learns that after choosing a core element, players can strengthen their characters through various sub-options. The entire configuration, from the core element down to the sub-options, is called a build. And in the Pro League, there are even build specialists who focus on optimizing these setups. Yuhayan takes his time to choose his core element, carefully considering his options. A loudspeaker crackles to life, calling out Subject 48, grabbing Yuhayan's attention. Yuhayan looks up, realizing that he had awakened in the previous experiment, meaning it had already been a week. In a flashback, Yuhayan wonders if the game skips the whole process leading up to the awakening. He guesses that players wouldn't want to experience that part anyway. A door opens, and a voice announces that they will start the next experiment immediately, leaving Yuhayan with no time to waste. Yuhayan barely had a moment to process what was happening when his eyes landed on something terrifying. A massive robot loomed before him, and Yuhayan's blood ran cold. and Etnol, a ruthless killing machine designed to control the awakened subjects of Project Transcendence. This thing was the reason so many test subjects had met their end. This was supposed to be a tutorial mission, but no one mentioned anything about facing one of these things. As the robot clanked closer, Yuhayan noticed its design seemed a bit outdated. Maybe it was an early model? Either way, it was still a giant death machine heading straight for him. A man was on the ground, barely conscious, his voice weak as he begged for help. The robot had its hands wrapped around the man's throat, lifting him effortlessly while bodies littered the ground around them. Yuhayan's stomach turned. This was not part of the tutorial. The robot suddenly turned its head, locking onto Yuhayan with glowing, mechanical eyes. Yuhayan gulped. So much for easing into things. Just as Yuhayan was processing the sudden attention, the robot lunged at him with alarming speed, clearly not interested in a casual chat. Yuhayan stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. This was just like every other weird situation he found himself in, different, yet somehow always worse. His expression hardened as he locked onto the robot. Those researchers were always cooking up something shady, and this time they'd outdone themselves. With a quick sidestep, Yuhayan barely dodged the robot's attack, his instincts kicking in just in time. Yuhayan barely dodged the attack, channeling his inner Neo from the Matrix. He knew this final model was no joke, yet could even use abilities, making it a real pain to deal with. But Yuhayan wasn't having it. With a swift move, he destroyed the robot, smirking as he thought how these early versions were nothing compared to him. As the dust settled, a voice echoed through the chamber, declaring the experiment complete. Yuhayan was praised as Subject 48, his potential apparently off the charts. The tutorial mission was over, and he had totally crushed it. Just as Yuhayan was about to celebrate his victory, a loud noise echoed through the chamber. A mysterious voice announced that it was time to begin the next experiment. Yuhayan couldn't help but wonder what fresh chaos was about to unfold. Suddenly, alarms blared, filling the air with a sense of urgency. It was clear that whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. A woman's voice crackled through the speakers, addressing all the victims imprisoned in the lab. Her tone was firm and determined, grabbing everyone's attention. She urged them to fight their way out by any means necessary. Yuhayan stared at the speaker, recognizing that voice. It was a call to action, and he was ready to respond. Before he could process everything, a loud explosion rocked the area above him. Yuhayan knew it was time to move, and fast. Without hesitation, Yuhayan bolted, his instincts kicking in. He wasn't about to stick around and find out what that explosion was all about. As he sprinted through the chaotic corridors, he spotted a man moving in the distance. Yuhayan's mind raced, trying to figure out if this was a friend or foe. Yuhayan's eyes widened as he noticed the emblem on the man's uniform. Not an enemy, good. The man spoke, asking if Yuhayan was planning to escape, clearly recognizing him as one of the victims. With a quick press of a button, the man offered his help. Yuhayan felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe his luck was finally turning around. A cabinet filled with weapons slid open, revealing an array of tools for survival. The man urged Yuhayan to take whatever he needed. Score, Yuhayan thought, feeling like a kid in a candy store, if the candy store was filled with weapons. The man handed Yuhayan a radio, instructing him to contact them once he made it out. Yuhayan nodded, clutching the radio like it was his lifeline. Suddenly, the man's hand fell limp. Yuhayan's heart skipped a beat, realizing something was terribly wrong. Before Yuhayan could process what was happening, a figure approached. Yuhayan's stomach dropped, recognizing Etnol. Oh, this can't be good, he thought, bracing himself for what was to come. Yuhayan locked in, his expression tightening as he prepared for whatever was coming his way. Meanwhile, in another corner of the universe, Soil Kong, a video game streamer, was having her own crisis. She couldn't believe she was playing something as mainstream as Reverse Planet. It was hurting her pride as a hipster, and she was not happy about it. Soil defended herself to her viewers, claiming she wasn't the one who chose this game. She reminded them that she, Soil Kong, had never broken a promise to her viewers. Looks like someone stuck between a rock and a mainstream place. Soil dove into the tutorials, determined to pick a flashy ability. Flame it was, because why not go out in a blaze of glory? She stared at the combat assist option, wondering if she could really clear the tutorial mission without it. 50% assist seemed like a crutch, but was she ready to go cold turkey? A flashback hit her. Based on her research, the percentage of players worldwide who played without assist was basically zero. She was about to enter uncharted territory. Soil shot a weak flame, her confidence wavering. She was sure about her game skills from grinding niche games, but playing without assist felt like suddenly having to control a third hand she never knew she had. Talk about a learning curve. Soil took a deep breath and addressed her chat, apologizing for the struggle. She admitted that going without assist was proving to be a challenge. But then she saw the reward, 500,000 to clear the tutorials without combat assist. Her eyes widened as she declared that every streamer should try this at least once. The prize too tempting to resist. However, her enthusiasm was short-lived. She instantly lost to an Eternal, her confidence crumbling as she turned to her chat, unsure about this whole no-assist thing. Frustration set in as she realized the gravity of the situation. This was going to be harder than she thought. The Eternal wasn't holding back, landing a solid kick on Soil. She stumbled back, the reality of her decision hitting her hard. With a sigh, Soil prepared herself for the next mission, determined to keep going despite the setback. With a determined click, Soil hit the party matching button, ready to dive back into the grind. But of course, the game had other plans. Party matching failed. Classic. As if that wasn't enough, the chat started buzzing, making fun of Soil's situation. They joked about how anyone she matched with would also be on no assist, making the challenge even harder. Some even said that beating it with a no-assist party would be impressive. But Soil wasn't in the mood for jokes. Just as the chat was getting on her nerves, the screen flashed with a surprising update. Matchmaking success. Soil couldn't believe her eyes. She was stunned, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. After all that struggle, she finally got a match. Just as she processed her victory, she suddenly found herself teleported into a room filled with people and robots scattered on the ground. Talk about a plot twist. She nervously glanced around, taking in the unexpected scene. This was not what she signed up for, and she couldn't help but wonder if her chat was seeing the same bizarre spectacle. Her eyes widened as she noticed the destruction around her, particularly a fist mark left on something. Someone had clearly been there, and they hadn't used a gun. This was getting more intense than a boss fight in her favorite game. A smirk played on her lips as she thought to herself, this might just turn out to be a free ride. Maybe luck was finally on her side. Meanwhile, the main character had just finished taking care of some soldiers. The room was silent, save for the echoes of the battle. He turned, sensing something was off. His instincts were rarely wrong, and this time was no exception. His eyes landed on Soil, who stood there looking a bit out of place. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting to see her there. She gulped, knowing she had some explaining to do. Before Soil could even finish her sentence, the protagonist lunged at her, his fist raised and ready to strike. But just as suddenly as he attacked, he stopped, his fist hovering mere inches from her face. Soil was terrified, her eyes wide and her breath caught in her throat. She jumped back, pressing herself against the edge of the room, her voice barely a whisper as she begged for her life. The protagonist sighed, running a hand through his hair as he muttered an apology. He turned to leave, but Soil's voice stopped him. She explained that they had been matched in a party and asked if she could come with him. As they walked, Soil introduced herself as a streamer, her words tumbling out in a nervous rush. She mentioned that she was live right now and asked if he was okay with being on the stream. The protagonist stopped abruptly, causing Soil to stumble to a halt behind him. Soil's heart pounded in her chest as she wondered if she had done something to make him angry. Her mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Just as Soil's anxiety reached its peak, soldiers stormed in, their voices booming with authority. The escaped subjects had been spotted, and the orders were clear: no survivors. Talk about bad timing, right? Gunfire erupted, bullets whizzing past them like angry bees. The soldiers meant business, and our duo was squarely in their sights. Soil glanced around, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. This was not the time to panic, it was time to move. The male lead, however, was already one step ahead. With a cool demeanor and swift movements, he dodged the bullets like he was in some action movie, ready to strike back. Someone's been practicing their parkour. With a swift motion, the male lead tossed his weapon aside, clearly done playing defense. Time to go on the offense. His weapon found its mark, taking down one of the soldiers. Soil watched nervously, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. Soil's mind raced as she struggled to comprehend the scene unfolding before her. She wasn't an expert in Reverse Planet, but something about this situation felt way off. The male lead wasn't done yet. With precise movements, he took down the two other soldiers, his focus unwavering. A chat message popped up, explaining to Soil that the only core element that turns your eyes white is a perfect being. Soil's confusion only deepened. Soil couldn't help but question what she was seeing. Wasn't the core element that turned your eyes white supposed to be the garbage element, the one where you couldn't use abilities at all? The male lead stood there, looking effortlessly cool, while Soil was left utterly confused. In the realm of Reverse Planet, a being of absolute perfection stood out among the many core elements. This being greatly boosted physical capabilities and resistance to abilities, but there was a catch. It completely blocked the use of any ability skills. Because of this major drawback, players usually dismissed it as a terrible choice. Soil looked amazed as she considered the idea of choosing a build that locks you out of abilities in a game where abilities are the whole point. She pondered it was true that without an assist, using abilities was hard. So, completely giving up on them and investing everything into physical stats could actually be a viable strategy. But even with this strategy, he should still be level 1. Yet, his movements were anything but ordinary. As he attacked 2 soldiers with unnatural prowess, Soil couldn't help but wonder, just who was this guy? The mysterious guy stood amidst the chaos, bodies scattered around him like a grim halo. He looked like the main character of some edgy anime, and the vibe was immaculate. He glanced at his reflection in the gleam of his scythe, probably wondering if his hair looked good after all that action. Suddenly, ghostly voices echoed around him, demanding more brutality, like some unhinged crowd at a gladiator match. Apparently, his performance wasn't hitting the marks. From the corner of his eye, a soldier spotted him, probably regretting his life choices at that moment. The soldier aimed his weapon, thinking he could take on the mysterious guy. Spoiler alert, he couldn't. Soil, being the ultimate ride or die, moved swiftly and shouted a warning to the mysterious guy. She fired 3 shots because when you see your friend in trouble, you don't just double tap, you triple tap. The soldier panicked, clearly not expecting that level of firepower from someone who looked like she should be studying for finals, not taking names on the battlefield. He tried to retreat back to the corner, probably thinking he could find cover and reassess his life choices. But Soil wasn't having it. She slid across the floor like she was in some action movie and finished him off with a clean shot to the head. She struck a pose, totally feeling herself after that move. Turning to the main character, she asked how she did, clearly fishing for a compliment. With a smile, she added that she helped a little, as if her contribution was just a small flex. Suddenly, the main character saw a flashback of a girl, voices echoing her name, Yuhyan, like a ghost from the past. The ghosts of the dead surrounded him, their presence haunting and relentless. Snapping back to reality, the ghosts fading into the background, Yuhyan was met with Soil's hesitant voice calling out to him, unsure if he was still in the moment or already lost in thought again. Soil wondered if he was upset that she had taken his kill, but she quickly backtracked, admitting that he had done basically everything and she had only helped a little. Yuhyan smiled, assuring her that she had definitely helped, and her face lit up with a mix of relief and excitement. With newfound confidence, Soil asked if they could do the tutorial mission together, promising to do her best. Yuhyan simply agreed and they set off. As they walked, Soil called him Mr. Carey again, but this time, Yuhyan corrected her, introducing himself properly. Soil, a bit flustered, quickly repeated his name, trying to get it right. Curiosity got the better of her, and Soil asked if he had chosen perfect being as his first core element. Yuhyan confirmed, and they continued on their way, the conversation flowing easily between them. Soil's curiosity was piqued, wondering if it was truly possible to dodge bullets without using any abilities. She eagerly asked Yuhyan about his gaming habits, but he casually mentioned he didn't really play games. Suddenly, Yuhyan stopped in his tracks. Soil, taken aback, asked what was wrong. He pointed out 2 etnals about 20 yards ahead, leaving Soil amazed at his detection skills. Soil couldn't help but marvel internally. How could he pinpoint enemies from such a distance without any ranged detection ability? Sure enough, the etnals appeared right where Yuhyan had said they would be. Soil was in awe, her eyes wide with surprise. As the etnals attacked, Yuhyan stood there carefree, recalling how he enjoyed playing Colosseum. Soil couldn't believe his calm demeanor in the face of danger. With lightning-fast reflexes, he dodged the incoming attacks, leaving Soil even more impressed by his skills. He wasn't done yet. With a swift motion, he launched into a roundhouse kick, his form flawless as he took down another opponent. One of the etnals tried to make a stand, digging into a wall for support, but it was clear the tide of battle was turning. With a powerful punch, he knocked out the other etnal, his strength and precision leaving no room for doubt. Soil was left flabbergasted, her mind racing. The chat was going wild too, with comments flooding in about his insane skills. Someone in the chat couldn't believe he just took out the etnals like that, while Soil stammered about the Colosseum leaderboard, wondering if it was really that big of a deal. The chat quickly filled her in, teasing her for not knowing about the Colosseum and explaining how making it onto the leaderboard used to mean instant pro offers back in the day. Soil was completely losing it, screaming about Battler and how he was like the biggest deal among Reverse Planet pros. Yuhyan just casually strolled forward, totally unfazed, saying they should keep moving. Suddenly, a red-haired soldier popped up, smirking and saying that Yuhyan actually made it that far. Turns out it was the lab security captain, and he was already talking trash, saying this was where Yuhyan would meet his end. The captain just wouldn't stop, saying Yuhyan would be seeing the others who went ahead soon enough. Yuhyan just stood there, recognizing him and muttering that the security captain was basically the tutorial boss up to this point. Yuhayan realized he had seen this guy before, probably in some training sim or something. Just as Yuhayan was processing the familiarity of the guy, a ghostly figure materialized behind the captain, adding a whole new layer of drama to the situation. The captain, clearly not in the mood for ghosts or chit-chat, charged forward with a battle cry, declaring that the ghost wasn't leaving alive. Soil, not missing a beat, pulled out her weapon and started shooting, because why not add some gunfire to this already chaotic scene? But plot twist, the captain had a shield that blocked the bullets, because of course he did. This guy was full of surprises. Soil quickly realized that the captain was an awakener and started backing up, shouting that she thought only awakeners could use particle barriers. She promised to watch Yuhayan's back, because teamwork makes the dream work. The chat was already buzzing, calling her move a quick call for help the second things looked bad, and praising her quick thinking. Priorities, right? With Soil covering his back, the main character swiftly dodged the captain's attack, showing off some slick moves. Not missing a beat, he countered with a punch that broke through the captain's particle shield like it was nothing. Boom! The impact sent the captain flying into the wall, creating a massive explosion that shook the room. Talk about a power move. Meanwhile, Soil was left scratching her head, totally confused. The chat was going wild, wondering why the captain's particle barrier activated without any guns being fired. Bug? Glitch? Maybe? Just then, the captain got up from the wall, looking as tough as ever. The chat was quick to notice the change in his skin, questioning if it was his ability. And yep, turns out the security captain's ability is a steel body. No big deal, just casually revealing superpowers. The captain wasn't wasting any time, leaping straight at the main character with the force of a freight train. The chat went wild, screaming about how he was going to rip the main character apart. And then someone noticed the floor collapsing under his weight. Typical Tuesday. The captain smashed the ground so hard, it sent shockwaves everywhere. The main character barely dodged in time, and the chat was quick to point out that his steel body probably weighed a ton. No kidding. The captain wasn't done yet. He rotated his fists, looking like he was about to bring out some serious heat. He taunted the main character, saying he wanted to see how long he could keep running. Spoiler, probably not long. And then, because why not, his fists turned into drills. Because apparently steel body wasn't enough, he had to go full power tool mode. The captain charged forward, tearing through walls like they were made of paper. The main character was backed into a corner, literally. Things were not looking great. The main character clenched his fist, probably wondering how he was still alive. The chat was losing it, saying one hit would be game over, but somehow he was still dodging. Someone mentioned they could barely dodge with combat assist, and another joked that covering fire wasn't going to help at this point. Yeah, no kidding. The main character wasn't done yet. He swung so hard it sent the captain's goggles flying. Like, who needs accessories anyway? The captain was left there, completely shocked, probably questioning his life choices at this point. Suddenly, ghostly hands started appearing out of nowhere. The vibe just got a whole lot spookier. The ghosts surrounded the captain, their voices echoing with a mix of fury and vengeance. The main character wasn't about to let him off easy. The ghosts were chanting about ripping him to pieces, making it even worse than what was done to them. Yikes, talk about holding a grudge. The captain was trembling, barely able to comprehend how a test subject could be this strong. Dude was seriously reconsidering his career path. The main character readied his hand, giving a shout out to the captain for his newfound strength. Like, thanks for the power-up, I guess? Meanwhile, Soil just stood there, staring at the chaos unfolding. Her expression was unreadable, but you know she was thinking something intense. Soil's confusion was next level. The laboratory security captain was down for the count, and she was over here wondering what in the world was going on. Chat wasn't helping either, just adding to the chaos. Then, out of nowhere, the main character lands a solid punch on the captain's face, taking him down. Soil's excitement was palpable, like she just beat the tutorial boss in some intense game. She was ready to make a break for it, thinking they just had to get outside to win. Meanwhile, Chat was over there wondering how she managed to find a carry at this time of night. But plot twist. The ghosts started doing their thing, covering the captain's body like some eerie blanket. The vibe was getting real fast. They finally made it outside, and Soil was already asking if Yuhayan was going to continue playing the campaign today. But Yuhayan? He wasn't feeling it. His response was a simple, oh no, like he knew something was about to go down. Yuhayan casually mentioned that he thought he would stop there. Soil, not missing a beat, asked if she could have a second to make a proposal before they wrapped up. She then cheerfully bid everyone farewell, promising to see them tomorrow. After a brief pause, Soil thanked Yuhayan for waiting, and then dove straight into her proposal. Yuhayan, ever the patient one, simply asked what the proposal was all about. Soil, suddenly flustered, asked if Yuhayan would be interested in being a recurring guest on her stream. The question hung in the air, filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Yuhayan, curious, asked if she meant her stream. Soil, regaining some composure, explained that they would mostly go through the Reverse Planet campaign and occasionally do some PvP too. Trying to look like an angel, Soil sweetened the deal by saying Yuhayan could set the schedule and she would adjust on her end. She also made sure to mention that he would be well compensated. Yuhayan shook his head and apologetically turned down the offer. Soil, though disappointed, took it in stride and simply replied with an understanding all right. Soil bowed gracefully as she prepared to log off, but not before asking if they could at least stay friends. Yuhayan, being the chill guy he is, agreed without hesitation. With a final wave, Soil mentioned how much fun she had and hoped he enjoyed the rest of the game too. Like, seriously, could she be any sweeter? Left alone, Yuhayan stood there, pondering his next move. He had finished the tutorial, so what was next on the agenda? But then it hit him. If he had finished the tutorial, why hadn't he been sent back to the real world? Yuhayan looked tired, confused, and honestly, a bit done with all the plot twists. Little did Yuhayan know at that moment, the consequences of this day would be something else entirely. Like, buckle up because things were about to get real. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more dramatic, an anonymous viewer donated some money and asked how he felt about being back in the real world. Plot twist much? As the sun rose over the Korean branch of planet Earth, the developers of Reverse Planet were already deep into their day, the early morning light casting a soft glow over their workspace. The office buzzed with activity, but the atmosphere was tense. Because of a single user, they were facing an unprecedented situation that had everyone on edge. Cut to a clip of the main character in an intense fight with the security captain. The guy couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was like something out of a dream. Back in the office, everyone was glued to the screen, watching the fight unfold. The main character had completely steamrolled the security captain without any combat assist or weapons. Online communities were already convinced he was a hacker, and players were flooding the forums, demanding an explanation. In a corner of the room, a group of guys were chatting nervously. One of them voiced what everyone was thinking: this was trouble. Were they absolutely sure he wasn't hacking? One of the workers, deep in thought, recalled how he had rewatched the entire run from character creation, just to be safe. There was no record of any external tampering, which only made the situation more confusing. The worker, still puzzled, strolled through a wall as if it were just a Tuesday. He had seen his fair share of cheaters, but this situation was something else entirely. Flashing back to the main character's insane moves, he couldn't help but be amazed. Those were not your average, run-of-the-mill gaming skills. It just didn't add up. Even the most skilled hackers couldn't pull off something like this. If the main character wasn't cheating, then he was dealing with some next-level talent. But hey, there was still a tiny chance it could be some undiscovered hack. The worker wasn't ready to rule anything out just yet. With a determined look, the worker decided they needed to run a thorough check. No stone would be left unturned. Meanwhile, the scene flipped to the main character and Naeon, chilling on a patio. Naeon leaned in, curious about what he was saying. Yuhayan was taken aback as Naeon grinned, revealing that the internet was buzzing about him. She excitedly explained that the whole situation had blown up online. People were even attempting a no-assist challenge, but since everyone was failing, they were convinced he had to be cheating. The internet was wilding out as usual. Naeon reminisced about the first time she saw the video, still shocked by his skills. Yuhayan was surprised she recognized him since his face was covered during the stream. Naeon laughed, reminding him that he literally said his name during the stream. Plus, she had seen him fight before and knew he was good, but this was next-level stuff. Yuhayan pondered, realizing that must be why they contacted him. Naeon jumped up, excitedly asking who they were. She couldn't believe they wanted to check if he was cheating. Yuhayan simply confirmed, leaving Naeon even more hyped. Yuhayan casually mentioned that the streamer had passed the info to him, leaving Naeon even more curious. Naeon was practically vibrating with excitement. The idea that the devs themselves wanted to check for hacks was mind-blowing. She couldn't believe the attention this was going to draw. She eagerly asked if he was going to do it. Yuhayan sipped his drink, deep in thought. It was just the Korean branch, but still, this was his only chance to get in touch with the devs. If someone important showed up, he might be able to learn something about the other world. He told Naeon he had told them he would think about it, but he was going to do it. Naeon's excitement hit the roof, cheering him on. Naeon pointed out that if he was going to keep playing Reverse Planet, it was best to clear his name. Getting called a hacker by everyone he met would be annoying. But Yuhayan didn't really care about that. Besides, would anyone even recognize him? His face wasn't shown on the stream. Naeon explained that he could change his name, but his fighting style was way too recognizable. People would know it was him. There wasn't a single pro player who fought without their signature moves. She went on to say that these days, even when pros tried to hide who they were, people still identified them from their habits. It was just how the gaming world worked. Neon settled back into her seat, relieved that he was finally on board. She knew that if he hadn't agreed, that other streamer would have faced a ton of backlash. He responded uncertainly, questioning why he should care since that streamer had nothing to do with him. Neon just shook her head, pointing out how silly that was. Did he really think the people screaming hacks right now cared about their connection? Neon went on to explain that they would come at him first, but it wouldn't be long before they turned on her too. He nodded in agreement, understanding the situation a bit better. After some thought, he decided to send a message to Soil. Soil was ecstatic when she received his message. She couldn't contain her excitement and blurted out that he had said yes. Looking at her viewership, she couldn't help but think about how much attention this was going to bring. Her views were going to skyrocket, and she was here for it. With a smile, she glanced at her nice computer setup, ready to take on whatever came next. But first, Soil had to make an announcement, addressing some hacking allegations that had been floating around. 3 days later, Yuhayan logged into Reverse Planet and was immediately greeted by Soil's enthusiastic hello. Soil hopped over to Yuhayan, apologizing for dragging him into the situation. But Yuhayan brushed it off, saying he didn't really care. Soil was stunned. She asked if Yuhayan suspected her of cheating. Yuhayan questioned if Soil suspected him of cheating instead. Soil replied that she had seen how he moved with her own eyes. A flashback showed Soil remembering the killer look in Yuhayan's eyes, making it impossible for her to suspect him. Back in the present, Soil announced that if everyone was ready, they would start the stream. With a bright smile, Soil kicked off the stream, greeting the chat with an apology for the wait. The view count skyrocketed to 10,000 almost instantly, leaving her stunned. The hype was undeniably real, and she acknowledged how invested everyone was in the controversy. To ramp things up, she announced that she had brought Yuhayan back as a guest. Yuhayan stepped in, greeting the chat with a simple hello, his usual calm demeanor on full display. But the chat wasn't exactly rolling out the welcome wagon. Soil quickly stepped in, asking everyone to keep it civil or she'd have to disable the chat. Before diving deeper, Soil turned to Yuhayan, asking how he felt about the whole controversy. Yuhayan, keeping his cool as always, brushed it off as absurd, wondering why something so trivial had blown up into such a big deal. The chat, of course, had a field day with his choice of words, throwing in comments about how trivial things don't usually make top rankers in the Coliseum go viral. Soil, a bit taken aback, stammered that calling it trivial might be an understatement. It was actually pretty impressive. The chat chimed in, curious about how he planned to clear things up. Soil teased that they had a special guest coming in any minute to help with that. Just as Soil finished teasing about the special guest, a random man suddenly logged in, catching everyone's attention. Soil's eyes lit up as she excitedly pointed him out, declaring that this was the person they had been waiting for. The man introduced himself as Jumhyan Park, the head of operations Team 1 at Planet Earth Korea. The chat went wild, realizing that a developer had been brought in to shut down the hacking accusations. The GM tag floating above his head was proof enough that he was the real deal, leaving the hacking accusations looking pretty weak. Yuhayan couldn't help but think that this head of operations might know something valuable. He made a mental note to ask him some questions once the current situation was resolved. Everyone bowed their heads respectfully as Soil introduced herself as streamer Soil Kong and Yuhayan as W.I. Yuhayan Beck. Park took a moment to look at Yuhayan, thinking to himself that this was the man in question. He seemed fairly ordinary, not at all what one might expect from the rumors. Park announced that he would take them to the testing area. Soil, curious, asked where they were. Park explained that it was a private training room, designed for practicing abilities and running combat drills. Park explained that they would be observing him over several rounds of combat to check for any external programs being used. Yuhayan scanned the area, noting that he had never seen this place in the other world. Park asked if he accepted the terms. Yuhayan, without hesitation, agreed. The door slid open, revealing what lay beyond. Heavy footsteps echoed as something approached. A large humanoid robot stepped through the doorway, its imposing figure casting a shadow over the room. Park announced that they would begin with the intermediate training bot. Yuhayan focused, ready for the challenge ahead. As Yuhayan locked in, a voice echoed, expressing fear. But Yuhayan stood firm, his determination unwavering. Park glanced up with a smirk, ready to lay down the usual spiel about an incoming battle. But his words trailed off as he noticed the main character was already gone, leaving him talking to thin air. Without missing a beat, Park casually stopped a flying rock midair with his tablet, like it was just another day at the office. Meanwhile, the main character was already in full intimidation mode, effortlessly ripping the head off a robot. Park could only stare in disbelief, muttering about how unreal this was. With a decisive step, Yuhayan lifted his foot off the defeated robot, signaling the end of the battle. Looking back one last time, Yuhayan declared that he was done with this fight, his tone carrying a mix of exhaustion and determination. Meanwhile, Park checked his tablet, noting that no external programs were detected during the battle. However, the test hadn't run long enough to be conclusive, leaving him with a sense of uncertainty. Park then asked Yuhayan if he would be willing to fight again, but this time under his conditions. Yuhayan nodded in agreement, understanding that auto battle worked by overriding user controls with a program, meaning he wouldn't have full control over his moves. Talk about a trust fall, right? Park laid out the plan, suggesting that having them follow a set of instructions agreed upon beforehand could be a simple way to prove whether they were using auto battle. Like a high-stakes game of Simon Says, but with more chains and less fun. Park couldn't help but think how these conditions seemed hopelessly stacked against Yuhayan. It was like watching someone try to win a cooking show with only a spoon and a dream. Park thanked Yuhayan and set the challenge: behead 3 intermediate training bots using a chain scythe. Yuhayan, ever the stoic, simply nodded in understanding. No pressure, just a casual day of bot beheading. The robots stepped forward, ready for action. It was like the start of a very dangerous game of tag. The 3 robots charged at Yuhayan, and despite the odds, Park couldn't shake the feeling that Yuhayan wasn't going to lose. It was like watching an underdog movie, but with more sparks and less cheesy music. The robots' fists clashed, creating a symphony of metal and sparks. It was like a heavy metal concert, but with more violence and less motion. Yuhayan dodged the onslaught with the grace of a dancer, albeit a dancer in a very dangerous and spark-filled performance. With a leap that would make any parkour enthusiast jealous, Yuhayan launched himself into the air, leaving the ground and its problems far behind. Mid-air, he wasn't just dodging anymore. With the precision of a chef dicing vegetables, he sliced through the robots, turning them into scrap metal. When the dust settled, Yuhayan stood alone in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by the remnants of his mechanical foes. Not a single bot was left standing. Soil was hyped, like she had just seen the coolest magic trick ever. She turned to Park, her eyes wide with excitement, practically shouting about how Yuhayan's chain scythe was moving like it had its own brain. Meanwhile, Park was just standing there, mouth open, looking like he had just seen the most amazing thing ever. Park's brain was working overtime, processing everything he had just witnessed. He had seen enough to make a judgment, and it was a big one. He couldn't help but stare at Yuhayan, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. The guy had just put on a one-man show, and Park was the amazed audience. Park, still in awe, finally managed to gather his thoughts, ready to speak. Suddenly, the door creaked open, interrupting the moment. In walked a robot, its eyes glowing like it just downed 3 energy drinks. The chat exploded with reactions. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The developer had to be serious with this move. If Yuhayan pulled this off, people would start calling him a cheat code incarnate. Park announced they would run the test with an advanced training bot, raising the stakes even higher. The main character snapped to attention, his focus sharpening like a blade. A flashback hit Hyman, advanced robot surrounded by chaos and destruction, a memory that sent a chill down his spine. The robot grinned, and something about it felt off, like when you see a clown at night and it's just not right. The main character's eyes narrowed, his calm demeanor shifting to pure rage faster than a TikTok trend. The robot lunged, its attacks swift and precise, leaving no room for error. Dodging with barely an inch to spare, the main character barely evaded the onslaught, his reflexes pushed to the limit. Each punch the robot threw left craters in the wall the size of a small car, making it clear this was no ordinary fight. The main character launched a counterattack, his mind racing with the realization that this was nothing like the intermediate bot he had faced before. One hit from this thing could be fatal. With a burst of speed, he landed a punch square on the robot's torso, hoping to turn the tide of the battle. The punch landed with a thud, but the robot didn't even flinch. Park couldn't believe it, the robot's body was absurdly tough. Before he could react, the robot swung back with lightning speed. He barely ducked in time, feeling the whoosh of air as the fist grazed past his head. Yikes, that was close. Soil and Park exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. This wasn't going as planned. He launched into a barrage of punches, each one landing with precision. Park watched in awe, muttering about how it was possible for someone with only one element to go head-to-head with an advanced training bot. But against all odds, he was slowly starting to turn the tide. Just as he was getting into the groove, the advanced robot vanished into thin air. Park stepped in, declaring he had seen enough. Park explained that he had collected all the necessary data for verification and dismissed the training bot. Soil eagerly asked about the results. Park confirmed without a doubt that no external program was involved, meaning he wasn't hacking. The chat went wild, wondering how that was even possible. Soil turned to her chat, asking what she had said. Yuhyun wasn't a hacker, and she wondered if there were any doubters still in the chat. Soil cheerfully explained that Yuhyun wasn't hacking. His mechanics were just so good that it looked like he was. With that, Soil wrapped up the stream, bidding everyone farewell and promising to see them again next time. Soil kicked things off with a heartfelt thanks to both Park and Yuhyun for joining the stream. Park, ever the polite one, brushed it off and threw some gratitude right back, especially toward Yuhyun. But our main man, Yuhyun, kept it cool and casual, like it was no big deal. Just as Park was about to dip, Yuhyun stopped him. There was something on his mind, and Park, being the chill guy he is, was all ears. Yuhyun dropped the question, "Are there any known bugs in the game?" Park looked a bit confused, clearly not expecting that one. Park pointed out that if there were some game-breaking bug trapping players, Reverse Planet wouldn't have blown up worldwide like it did. Yuhyun couldn't help but feel a bit let down by that answer. With that, Park logged off, leaving Yuhyun to his thoughts. Soil, still riding the high from the stream, thanked Yuhyun again for everything. She remembered she still needed to send him his cut of the stream revenue and asked if she could hit him up later. Yuhyun, ever the low-maintenance guy, said it wasn't necessary but sure, she could contact him. Soil was internally screaming, not ready for the stream to end. Yuhyun asked if there was something else she wanted to say, but Soil couldn't bring herself to invite him again. She logged off, thinking she only got him to agree this time to clear his name. She decided to give up for today but promised to be in touch. Yuhyun felt like the stream ended up being less fruitful than he had hoped. Kind of disappointing, really. Just as he was about to leave, a message from Naeon popped up, asking him to meet her in the combat prep room now that the stream was over. Naeon, blushing, asked how he liked the stream. She mentioned that people online were going wild and the stream really blew up. Yuhyun replied that he didn't think streaming was for him. He preferred to just play without talking and didn't want to pay attention to the chat. Naeon was taken aback, surprised by his response. But Naeon, not one to give up easily, grabbed his arm and asked him to hear her out. What if he didn't have to look at the chat at all and could just play like normal? She continued, saying she would handle everything on her end and he could just try it and then decide after. But Yuhyun was still not interested in streaming at all. Naeon, not missing a beat, suggested they dive into some PvP action, her enthusiasm practically glowing. She explained that PvP was one of the two major gameplay branches in Reverse Planet, where players faced off against each other, unlike the PvE mode. Yuhyun raised an eyebrow, questioning if that was the reason he was called to the combat prep room. Soil chimed in, accusing him of being a meanie for even thinking of leaving without playing with her at least once. Yuhyun admitted he wasn't planning on touching the game for a while, as he didn't think it was for him. Naeon, looking a bit irritated, argued that PvP was the best part of Reverse Planet and he shouldn't write it off just because he'd only played the tutorial. Yuhyun pondered for a moment, realizing that while the story mode was almost identical to the other world, PvP was completely new to him. He might find something there that he wouldn't in story mode. Naeon continued, explaining the first mode, Duel. As the name suggested, it was a mode where you fought the opponent you were matched with. There were solo matches 1 versus 1 and duo matches 2 versus 2 with matches decided by best of 3 rounds. Naeon then moved on to the next mode, Skirmish. It was a 5 versus 5 team match with 4 different objective types. She hinted that this was the mode they would be playing that day. She explained the last remaining team or player wins in survival mode, a battle royale. It was clear that Naeon was setting the stage for an intense match. Considering it was his first time, Naeon suggested playing in teams. She also mentioned that for player versus player combat, a decent build was necessary and offered to recommend one for him. But he declined, mentioning he already had a solid build, the one that earned him the title of Transcendent in the other world. Naeon was impressed but also a bit skeptical. He assured her he would set it up while she got them ready to queue. The anticipation was building as they prepared for their first match together. Naeon suggested heading to the military base for their drop, a location known for its wide range of high-tier loot. However, it was also a spot that attracted experienced players, making it a poor choice for beginners. Getting a bit too friendly, Naeon asked if he minded if she recorded their match to upload it to MeTube. He told her to calm down, but she was already pressing start, ready to dive into the action. With a cheerful yay, Neon pressed start, and they were off to their first match. The excitement was palpable as they embarked on their gaming adventure. Neon teleported to the mode with a cheeky grin, bidding farewell to her friends with a playful see you on the other side. In a flash, the main character materialized in a new location, finding himself face to face with a man who seemed just as surprised to see him. The man glanced around, confusion written all over his face as he muttered about being in a third-floor hallway. Before the man could finish his thought, the main character lunged forward, ready to grab him. The man's eyes widened, realizing he'd better make a quick exit. Meanwhile, Neon was hiding behind a wall, trying to stay out of sight. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the area, sending debris flying. As the dust settled, Neon got a notification that the main character had successfully eliminated someone. The game was on and the stakes were high, and just like that, more elimination notifications popped up. Neon was left totally baffled, her mind racing. What was going on? This game was getting wild and she was here for it, but also, what even? Suddenly, the scene shifts to a man taking a hit, setting the stage for a high-stakes showdown. Our main character, not missing a beat, swiftly eliminates another opponent, proving he's not here to play games. In a flashback, we see him slicing through 4 people like a hot knife through butter. No cap, this guy's got some serious skills. Just as Yuhayan thought he was done and ready to head out, a call came through. It was Neon screaming for help. She was completely surrounded and outnumbered. Yuhayan knew he had to move fast. Checking the map, Yuhayan realized Neon was on the opposite block, which was pretty far. But distance wasn't going to stop him. He quickly messaged Neon, telling her he was on his way and asking where she was in the building. She replied, letting him know she was on the rooftop of the 3rd floor. Yuhayan dashed towards her location, but Neon warned him about the noise coming from below. There was a fight on every floor and he needed to be careful. As he sped through the building, Yuhayan encountered 2 guys who noticed him and tried to get ready for a fight. They were shocked by his speed, wondering how he could move so fast. But Yuhayan wasn't about to slow down. In a flash, Yuhayan took out one of the men, leaving the other in sheer terror. The remaining man could only look on in horror, realizing he was no match for Yuhayan's skills. The man, realizing he was outmatched, tried to psych himself up. Yuhayan must be running a physical build focused on speed, he thought, trying to strategize on the fly. With a desperate move, he shoots some purple stuff into the ground and yells out, hoping to turn the tables. Yuhayan, however, just leaps into the air like it's no big deal. Yuhayan hangs in the air for a moment, looking down at his opponent with a mix of pity and determination. Before the man can even blink, Yuhayan strikes him down. The man can only mutter in disbelief, seriously, as he hits the ground. Yuhayan doesn't even pause, just keeps running as the man he just took out disappears into thin air. Just another day in the life, right? Yuhayan skids to a stop at the building entrance, barely breaking a sweat. Suddenly, Neon's voice pops into his head, offering to join the party. Classic Neon, always ready to jump into the action. He waves her off, telling her to hold tight. No time for backup now, he's already at the door. Yuhayan steps inside, totally unaware that some guy is currently playing hide and seek to his right. Smooth move, dude, real subtle. Out of nowhere, a dude lunges at Yuhayan like he's trying to win a gold medal in sneak attacks. Classic move, really. But Yuhayan, being the total pro he is, just casually catches the guy's hand midair like it's no big deal. Smooth reflexes, dude. The attacker's face? Pure confusion. Like he just realized he bit off way more than he could chew. And before the guy can even process what's happening, Yuhayan drops him like a bad habit. Instantly, Yuhayan doesn't even pause, just dashes off like he's got places to be and people to see. In his mind, he's thinking it's time to pick up the pace. Meanwhile, Neon's over there watching the whole thing go down, mouth hanging open in pure amazement. She can't even believe what she's seeing again. Neon's eyes were glued to the notifications popping up on her screen. Yuhayan was absolutely steamrolling the competition, and she couldn't look away even if she wanted to. But then, something caught her eye. A flicker of movement, a shadow where there shouldn't be one. Her instincts kicked in, and she knew something was off. Without hesitation, she whipped around, her reflexes sharp. Someone was behind her, and she wasn't about to let them get the drop on her. But Yuhayan was quick, dodging her attack with ease. Neon's eyes widened as she realized she'd just made the first move against the very person she'd been admiring. There was Neon, holding a chainsaw, looking like she meant business. Yuhayan couldn't help but be impressed. She admitted she hadn't even noticed Neon until she was right next to him, and now he could see how she'd racked up 14 kills on her own. Neon wasn't done yet, though. She asked if he'd already wiped out everyone in the building, her voice a mix of challenge and curiosity. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the battlefield, Neon declared she couldn't afford to lose. She'd carry him for the rest of the match if she had to. But Yuhayan wasn't about to let that happen. No chance. And just like that, the match wrapped up with them snagging the top spot in duo survival mode. 10 wins in a row? Yeah, they were on fire. Neon was beat. Can't even feel her face exhausted. She'd given it her all, and now she was running on fumes. 10 wins was no joke, and she was ready to tap out for the day. As she glanced over at Yuhayan, she couldn't help but think, this guy was supposed to be just some average college student. Right? Wrong. Total gaming beast mode. And now she was scheming. Streaming? Oh, she was gonna make it happen. She locked eyes with him, all serious. Could he maybe pump the brakes on the campaign for a couple of days? She'd be back with a full-on streaming pitch. But Yuhayan? Not interested. At all. Neon wasn't giving up that easy, though. She logged off, but not without throwing out one last plea, just give her a chance. She'd come back with a solid plan. No way was this the end. And there he stood, Yuhayan, probably wondering what he'd just gotten himself into. Classic. Yuhayan stood there, realizing that after all that, he didn't even get any useful leads from the PvP match. Total bummer. Meanwhile, the scene switched to an apartment building under the night sky. Inside, Soil was laying down, grinning at her phone like it held the secrets of the universe. Turns out, she was reading the reverse time community chats, reliving the hype of her latest stream with Yuhayan. She rolled back and forth on her bed, excitement written all over her face. She hit the jackpot with that stream. 100,000 viewers. She couldn't believe it. A number so big, she wondered if she'd ever see it again in her streaming career. Laying on the edge of her bed, she couldn't help but think about Yuhayan. It would have been amazing if she could keep streaming with him. Maybe she should have pushed a little harder. Flashback hit her. Yuhayan's words echoed in her mind, firmer than ever before. He wasn't interested in streaming. And that was that. Soil tapped her phone, deciding to handle the payment first, still processing Yuhayan's firm words. Her eyes widened as she saw the amount. What was this? Way more than she expected. Cut to the next day, Yuhayan and Neon were at a cafe. He was still confused as to why she called him out of the blue. His confusion only grew as he looked at the weird computer screen display in front of him. What even was this? Neon proudly presented her work, the presentation she prepared all night to convince him. She explained that Yuhayan had mentioned he was okay with streaming as long as he didn't have to interact with chat. What if he could just play like normal without even looking at chat? Yuhayan clarified that he never said he was okay with it, but Neon had an idea. What if they made it a reality TV format? Yuhayan was taken aback. Reality TV? Neon pitched the idea of reality TV, a format where panelists sit in a studio and react to recorded footage of other cast members. Yuhayan listened, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely sold on the concept. Neon quickly laid out her plan. Yuhayan would focus on playing the game, while she would handle the chat interactions. It seemed like a decent compromise, but Yuhayan still looked skeptical. She wasn't done yet, though. Neon suggested bringing in a pro commentator if Yuhayan didn't think she could manage. They would split the earnings 70-30. She grinned, asking what he thought, clearly proud of her proposal. Yuhayan, however, was having none of it and flatly stated he wasn't interested. Neon wasn't ready to give up. She urged him to consider the potential earnings from streaming. Then, she asked if he had received his payout from Soil Kong. Yuhayan paused, recalling that he did get an email that morning but hadn't had the chance to read it because he had to rush Alice. Neon's eyes nearly popped out as she saw the donation amount. 6 million won. She couldn't believe Yuhayan was still hesitant after seeing that number. But Yuhayan, ever the curious one, was more interested in the mysterious donation itself. Something about the donation caught Yuhayan's attention. He stared at his phone, his mind racing with possibilities. The donor was anonymous, but their username was Viewer62. It seemed familiar, yet Yuhayan couldn't quite place it. Suddenly, it hit him. He sprang up, his eyes wide with realization. That nickname, it was obviously meant for him, test subject 62. But how did they know he had returned from the other world? Neon looked at him, utterly confused by his sudden outburst. Yuhayan turned to Naeon, his voice urgent. He needed to know if it was possible to find out the information of a donor. Naeon, taken aback, replied that it was probably not possible due to privacy laws. Naeon explained that he couldn't even message them first, he could only interact with them while he was live. Yuhayan, determined, squeezed his phone tightly. He had made up his mind. He would start streaming. Naeon's face lit up with excitement. She couldn't believe he had finally agreed, and she made sure he knew there was no changing his mind later. Naeon's excitement hit a record high as the streaming announcement went live, but Yuhayan had to drop the classic, but there's a catch moment. Because of course, there's always a catch. Friday night had finally rolled around, and the city was buzzing with people unwinding in their own unique ways. Gamers from all corners were glued to their screens, united by a shared excitement. They were all waiting for the Hekanik stream to begin, fingers ready to type in chat. Meanwhile, in the broadcast studio at Reverse Planet, Naeon was shaking with nerves as the countdown to the game's start began. With just 5 minutes left, Naeon let out a shaky breath, her nerves getting the best of her. The man beside her noticed and tried to reassure her, saying they were totally prepared. Sankyol Cha, the professional commentator, chimed in, admitting he was super nervous too when they first reached out. He continued, honestly, he didn't think there was anyone besides Soil who could get Hekanics on board. As the stream was about to go live, Naeon took a deep breath, ready to face the excitement and nerves head-on. The stream went live, and Naeon greeted everyone with a burst of energy, introducing herself and Sankyol to the audience. Glancing at the chat, Naeon noticed some confusion and quickly addressed it, hinting that the audience shouldn't be disappointed just yet. With a playful tone, she revealed that Hekanics was already in-game, building up the excitement. Naeon explained that Hackwatch would be presented like a reality show, with them watching Hekanics play and adding their reactions and commentary along the way. Teasing the audience's curiosity about how Hekanics plays Reverse Planet, Naeon asked if they should dive in, setting the stage for the adventure to come. Just as the vibe was getting cozy, Yuhayan's radio crackled to life with a call to action. Because of course it did. Time to get this show on the road. Standing in the middle of a forest, Yuhayan received a message from the Otherworld Management Bureau. The mission was clear: extract all survivors from the forest and bring them to the rendezvous point. No biggie, just a typical day in the life. As Yuhayan dashed through the forest, he couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu. It was the same as back then, and the memories came flooding back. A flashback hit him like a ton of bricks, showing him running through the forest with someone getting shot. In that world, all he could do was run, and the helplessness of it all weighed heavily on him. But this time, Yuhayan was determined to make a difference. With a fierce look in his eyes, he made a declaration, ready to change the course of events. The guards exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from confidence to uncertainty as they noticed Yuhayan's fierce determination. Suddenly, one of them shouted, pointing towards Yuhayan, ordering the others to surround him from 3 sides. The guards scrambled into action, their earlier hesitation replaced by a sudden urgency. With a leap, the guards lunged at Yuhayan, their weapons glinting in the light. Yuhayan barely had time to react as the guards closed in on him. Yuhayan's eyes narrowed, his focus sharpening as he locked onto his attackers. He muttered, a calm yet steely edge to his voice, that they were all going down. In a blur of motion, Yuhayan began dodging the incoming attacks, his body moving with a precision and speed that left the guards struggling to keep up. Bullets whizzed past him, missing their mark as Yuhayan skillfully evaded each one. Yuhayan wasn't just dodging, he was countering. With a swift motion, he swung his scythe, landing a solid hit on one of the guards. The impact was catastrophic. The guard exploded into a burst of light, leaving Yuhayan unscathed and ready for more. Yuhayan leapt onto the shoulders of 2 guards, using them as a platform. The guards were furious, yelling about his audacity, demanding he meet his end. But Yuhayan had other plans. He wrapped chains around the guards, binding them together in a swift and efficient motion. With a final heave, he threw them to the ground, leaving them incapacitated and unable to continue their assault. With the guards finally taken care of, he stood amidst the chaos, catching his breath and surveying the aftermath of his unexpected strategy. Naeon and Sankyol watched in disbelief, their expressions a mix of shock and awe. This wasn't the Reverse Planet they knew, and Sankyol couldn't believe his eyes. He had never seen anything like this in his entire career as a commentator. The way he pulled every enemy toward him with zero strategy left them both stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew. Amidst the chaos, a donor's voice cut through, declaring that the perfect being was broken, adding another layer of complexity to the already mind-bending situation. Naeon, still processing the events, turned to Sankyol and asked about the donor's claim. Sankyol, ever the commentator, didn't hesitate to share his thoughts. He outright dismissed the idea, explaining that abilities have an inherent cooldown. He went on to suggest that a hacker's build, using a core element with no cooldown, could indeed seem overpowered, leaving them both to ponder the implications of this revelation. Sankyol continued, explaining that the perfect being ability only boosts physical capabilities, not combat intuition or weapon proficiency. He reminded Naeon that Hakanix was playing without combat assist, making his performance even more impressive. In other words, Hakanix could fight like this in real life if his body could keep up, proving that this performance was uniquely possible because it was Hakanix. Suddenly, guards surrounded the main character, their presence imposing and tense. Among them stood Cheol Kim, the team leader of the Otherworld Management Bureau. He demanded the main character drop his weapon and surrender peacefully. The symbol of the Otherworld Management Bureau loomed, a government agency tasked with eliminating hostile entities that invade through dimensional portals. The Otherworld Management Bureau usually contained invaders in the mirror world, a place where dimensions intertwined like a cosmic smoothie. It was the perfect spot to exterminate unwanted guests. But now, the mirror world looked different, like someone had hit the shuffle button on reality itself. Yuhyan raised his hands in a classic, "I come in peace" gesture. He hadn't expected to run into Director Kim here, or rather, Team Leader Kim now. Cheol told the guard to stand down, his voice steady. He recognized Yuhyan as one of the victims who had escaped the lab and apologized. Yuhyan brushed it off like it was no big deal. Cheol's eyes landed on the radio in Yuhyan's hand. He asked where he had found it. Yuhyan casually mentioned that one of Cheol's agents inside the lab had given it to him. Cheol sighed, connecting the dots. If Yuhyan had the radio, that meant the agent was gone. Yuhyan noted that Cheol was still a man of compassion, just like in the other world. Cheol informed Yuhyan that he would need to stay at the bureau until they could confirm his identity. Yuhyan agreed without any fuss. With the mission complete, Yuhyan could finally take a breather. The mirror world was safe, and he had a new temporary home at the bureau. Back at headquarters, Yuhyan could finally take a breather. The mirror world was safe, and he had a new temporary home at the bureau. Sitting in the conference room, Yuhyan found himself in the bureau's counseling office, a place he never thought he would be. Reflecting on his past, Yuhyan recalled how he took on corporate contracts to build up funds for his revenge after escaping the lab. Assassinations and kidnappings were part of the gig, but the biggest contributor to his funds was something else entirely. Flashbacks of intense battles, like the one against a large praying mantis, flooded his mind. Those were the days. Corporations would storm into the mirror worlds chasing loot, but the moment they decided the spoils weren't worth it, they'd dump the cleanup on him. Do that long enough and you're bound to get mixed up with the Otherworld Management Bureau. As Yuhyan sat there in deep thought, a woman stepped into the room, greeting him with a warm hello. Introducing herself as Yujin Lee, an agent of Team 1, she brought a new energy into the room. Yuhyan couldn't help but notice her confidence, and maybe something else. Yujin slid a chair toward Yuhyan, her confidence still radiating. She greeted him with a warm hello and congratulated him on making it this far. But the real talk was just beginning. She laid it out plain and simple. He had two choices now. First option, live as a civilian under the Otherworld Management Bureau's protection. Sounds safe, but there was a catch. Using his abilities would be a big no-no. Second option, become an agent of the Bureau. Yuhyan could almost hear the dramatic music playing in the background. Yujin quickly added that becoming an agent didn't mean he'd be thrown into the deep end immediately. He'd get the necessary training, and only when they deemed him ready would he be assigned. So, basically, no immediate life or death situations. Few. Yuhyan took a moment to process everything. Civilian life or agent life. It was like choosing between a cozy blanket fort and a high-stakes adventure. No pressure, right? Yujin leaned in, her tone direct and to the point. So what would it be? Civilian or agent? The ball was in Yuhyan's court, and the clock was ticking. Yuhyan pondered his options. If he chose the civilian path, he would likely end up as some company's hired hand, just like in his previous life. He wasn't interested in repeating that experience. Besides, he had something else in mind. With a decisive look, Yuhyan declared he would become an agent. Yujin's face lit up with a smile, clearly excited. She assured him that he wouldn't regret his decision and that having him on board would be great for the team. Yujin signed, explaining that corporations had been poaching awakeners lately, leaving them stretched thin. Leaning in, Yujin whispered, sharing that she wasn't just saying this because she worked for the bureau, but she had heard many people regretted going corporate. Corporations had only recently started training awakeners, so they were still figuring things out. On the other hand, the Otherworld Management Bureau had a long history. Yujin boasted that they had plenty of experience training awakeners and sweeping mirror worlds, making them the better choice. Yujin thought about how corporate jobs might pay better, but they came with a lot more baggage. Yuhayan agreed, remembering how many awakeners died on those jobs and how some companies would stiff them on pay like it was no big deal. Yuhayan recalled the extreme measures he had to take just to get paid, which eventually led to him being exposed as an unregistered awakener. That was when the Otherworld Management Bureau started hunting him down. Yujin slid a phone across the table, mentioning she would put in a request to get him registered as an awakener. She added that the phone was his work phone now. Yuhayan asked what he should do now. Yujin replied that he would start out as a trainee and once he proved his skills, he would be promoted. Yujin got up and mentioned she hoped he would end up on Team 1 with her. Yuhayan silently hoped for the same thing. As they shook hands, Naeon suddenly paused, sensing something was off about the conversation. Her confusion deepened as she realized the NPC's responses were way too natural, almost like talking to a real person. She couldn't believe if having a proper conversation with an NPC was supposed to be impossible, right? Sankyol was just as shocked, realizing this NPC's behavior was just like Yujin's when they first met. He couldn't believe Ithis had to be total adaptive AI. The revelation left them both stunned, struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Total adaptive AI meant an NPC with AI that could perfectly respond to any situation or request, conversing freely like a real person. Sankyol excitedly explained that this kind of technology was supposed to eat up an absurd amount of resources, making it impossible for online games. Naeon wondered if they had somehow found a way around the resource problem. Sankyol doubted it, though. If they had, there would be no reason to hide it as an Easter egg like this. They would have totally bragged about it. Sankyol figured the first requirement was probably choosing zero combat assist from the start, which was the only thing that set Hakanix apart from other players. Naeon knew this was going to make the internet explode. Sankyol was so curious about what planet Earth was going to announce that he might not sleep that night. Naeon added that for players who were genuinely invested in Reverse Planet's story, this was going to be fascinating. They might even bring in a big-name guest. Sankyol knew it was a shame, but this was where they stopped for the day. Naeon asked everyone to look forward to the next stream for more, as they were switching over to PvP. In the combat prep room, Yuhayan noticed that Anonymous Viewer 62 had not shown up yet. Yuhayan recalled his condition, asking to be alerted if Anonymous Viewer 62 appeared in chat or donations, even if he was in the middle of something. Since he hadn't heard anything from Naeon, he decided to continue streaming. Naeon received Yuhayan's message and, with a hint of excitement, decided to jump into player versus player mode. The duel began, and Naeon mentioned that it was Hakanix's first time playing this mode. Sankyol chimed in, assuming that Hakanix would start in the unranked league. For those unfamiliar, Reverse Planet had a total of 8 ranks, and to reach bronze, one needed 10 wins in the unranked league. Sankyol looked at his tablet and noted that it took an average of 30 minutes for pros, while regular players took around 2 hours. No biggie, right? Just as he was getting comfortable, a new message popped up on his screen. The challenge? 10 wins in a row, all within 30 minutes. No pressure, right? Naeon and Sankyol were hyping up the stream, their excitement palpable. Things were getting spicy, and the audience was hooked. Sankyol amped up the anticipation, wondering if Hakanix could pull off this seemingly impossible mission. Stay tuned, indeed. Before he knew it, he was thrust into the duel arena. The virtual world around him buzzed with anticipation. He drew out 2 swords, weapons the audience hadn't seen him use yet. Sankyol couldn't help but comment on the fresh gear, adding to the intrigue. He stood there, cool as a cucumber, while his opponent charged up an attack. The tension was real, but our guy was all about that chill vibe. The opponent finally launched his attack, hyped and ready to go all out. But our main character wasn't having it. In a flash, he countered, shredding through the attack like it was nothing. And there he stood, looking cooler than ever, like he just took a casual stroll in the park instead of dismantling an attack. Next round began, and the opponent took one look at him and was like, "Nah, I'm good." He threw in the towel before it even started, shouting that it was a smurf and he wasn't about to get wrecked. Dude straight up surrendered, waving the white flag. Couldn't blame him after seeing that smooth counter. Next round kicked off and our main character was back at it, parrying these purple beams like he was swatting flies. The opponent didn't stand a chance, getting sliced and left looking utterly confused. Our main character struck a pose, looking cool as ever after his lightning-fast attack. Next round kicked off, and the opponent charged at our main character with determination. But once again, it was like watching money get sliced in half, effortless and swift. Round after round, it was the same result. The opponent got cut in half, no contest. Naeon and Sankyol watched in amazement, barely believing the time it took for Yuhayan to rack up 10 straight wins. Naeon and Sankyol were left speechless as Yuhayan climbed the ranks to bronze in just 20 minutes. Naeon could barely find the words, her mind racing with disbelief. Sankyol, too, was at a loss, struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Sankyol, now buzzing with excitement, pointed out that Yuhayan's speed was just the tip of the iceberg. What really blew his mind was his flawless match record. Normally, players hit a wall or face a tough opponent, and their performance starts to wobble, but not Yuhayan. As they flashed back to Yuhayan's games, it was clear he didn't just beat his opponent, she demolished them. It didn't matter what strategies or builds they used, Yuhayan stayed flawless from start to finish, delivering a total stomp every single time. Naeon was hyped to see how Yuhayan would crush it in ranked matches, but Sankyol couldn't help but sweat it a little. Live matches meant stream sniping was totally a thing, even if the odds of it actually working were pretty low. Still, maybe they were just overthinking it. Next round kicked off, and Yuhayan found himself in a cemetery showdown. His opponent popped up out of nowhere, clearly thinking he'd pulled off some next-level strat. The guy started trash-talking Yuhayan, calling him out as a hacker and swearing to teach him a lesson. Classic gamer rage, live for everyone to see. Yuhayan just drew his sword, totally unfazed by the drama. Sankyol noted how chill he was staying, and Naeon mentioned she told him to just ignore the noise if stuff like this went down. Suddenly, the room lit up like a rave as electricity crackled around the man, setting the mood for what was about to go down. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and everyone knew this was about to get real. The man wasn't wasting any time, charging straight at Yuhayan like a bull seeing red. Yuhayan, though, was having none of it. He dodged the attacks like he was swiping left on bad dating profiles, all while the man screamed about how much he wanted Yuhayan to meet his maker. Yuhayan had heard enough trash talk to last a lifetime, so he decided it was time to end this little show. With a swift move, Yuhayan slashed the man across the torso, leaving him clutching his stomach like he'd just eaten something seriously sketchy. The man was utterly defeated, gasping out how Yuhayan was a total monster. Yuhayan just stood there, brushing off his clothes like it was just another day at the office. No time to celebrate, though, as the next round kicked off immediately. Yuhayan barely had time to dust himself off before the action started again. The man was over there, frantically clicking his status bar, muttering about how he got completely wrecked and needed to switch things up if he didn't want to lose again. Suddenly, lightning started crackling around him. Yuhayan raised an eyebrow, sensing a sudden shift in the vibe. The man lunged at Yuhayan with renewed energy. Yuhayan barely had time to react, but he could already tell something was different. Dodging at the last second, Yuhayan noted how the man's movements had gotten sharper, heavier, almost like head leveled up mid-battle. It was efficient, almost like head unlocked some hidden skill. The man smirked, like head just pulled off the ultimate power move. He taunted Yuhayan, asking if he finally got it, calling him a filthy hacker. Before Yuhayan could even respond, the man launched a lightning attack straight at him, yelling about how head been going easy on him in the first round. Yuhayan barely sidestepped, realizing this fight just went from 0 to 100 real quick. But Yuhayan wasn't about to be caught off guard. With a calmness that screamed, "Been there, done that," he blocked the attack like it was just another day at the dojo. The scene opens with a tense atmosphere, the air thick with anticipation. The man's eyes widened in shock as he noticed a sudden change in the main character's demeanor, his confidence wavering for the first time. He tried to reassure himself, sweating bullets, insisting that he was still winning this fight, but his nerves betrayed him. With a burst of determination, the man charged at the main character, yelling not to get cocky. The main character swiftly stepped aside, avoiding the man's attack with ease. In a flash, the main character countered, slashing the man with precision. The man staggered back, stunned by the main character's swift and unexpected move. As the man turned around, he realized too late that the main character was already in his blind spot. Before he could react, the main character struck again, cutting his arm and leaving him in pain. Gritting his teeth, the man readied another attack, his frustration boiling over as he yelled at the main character. The man barely finished his sentence before the main character swiftly sliced him, leaving him in shock. Tears welled up in the man's eyes as the pain and realization of his defeat started to sink in. The scene was intense, and the viewers couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions as they watched the drama unfold. Nayeon couldn't believe what she was seeing and questioned if the man was truly defeated. Sangyeol confirmed her thoughts, adding to the suspense of the moment. Nayeon wondered if the main character was dragging out the fight on purpose, knowing he could have ended it already. Sangyeol agreed, noting that the main character had really taken her advice to heart, much to her surprise. Nayeon reflected on her words, admitting she did tell him to rip them apart, but she hadn't expected this level of intensity. The man looked utterly defeated, his back against the wall as he cursed his luck and the situation. The man's frightened face reflected off the main character's sword as he declared he would give back what was said to him, setting the stage for the final blow. As the second round concluded, the tension in the air was palpable, the finality of the moment hanging heavy. In a flash, the man's body vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence that spoke volumes of the main character's power. But the main character was far from done. He embarked on a 30-game win streak, each victory adding to his growing legend. The spectators were left in awe. Nayeon couldn't believe her eyes as she exclaimed that he had already reached gold. Sangyeol, equally stunned, admitted he never expected a 30-win streak record to be set on the very first stream. The chat was buzzing with excitement, everyone trying to comprehend the sheer skill on display. Questions flew around, each one a testament to the main character's incredible performance. How on earth did he get that good? It was the question on everyone's mind. Nayeon, glancing at the chat, noticed the repeated requests for his build. She pondered for a moment, realizing that sharing such details was uncommon, but figured it wouldn't hurt to try. The anticipation in the air was almost tangible as everyone waited for a response. The main character, Yoo-hyun, glanced at Nayeon's message, a hint of nonchalance in his demeanor as he responded with a casual sure, whatever. The chat erupted once more, the excitement reaching a fever pitch as they awaited the revelation of his build. Nayeon couldn't contain her excitement as she shared the news with the chat. Hakanix was going to share his build. The chat buzzed with anticipation, their excitement palpable. With a final bow to the stream, Nayeon and Sangyeol bid farewell to their viewers, promising to return on the next stream. The gratitude in their voices was evident as they thanked the viewers for sticking with them for so long. The excitement was electric as Sangyeol hyped up the stream's achievements. A total adaptive AI, a 30-win streak, and even a build reveal. Every online community was about to blow up, and the anticipation was killing everyone. Nayeon's eyes sparkled as she caught a glimpse of the potential earnings, and she couldn't help but wonder about the current longest win streak. Sangyeol was quick to chime in, revealing that the current record in duel mode was 76 wins in a row by battler. Nayeon was in a state of bliss as she expressed her hopes for Yoo-hyun to set a new record. She was sure he could do it, and Sangyeol agreed, adding a thoughtful observation. Sangyeol pointed out that Battler was known for being competitive, so there was a good chance he was keeping tabs on Hakanix right now. The conversation flowed smoothly, the excitement and anticipation building with each passing moment. Meanwhile, in the digital realm, eyes were glued to screens, watching the unfolding drama. Someone was scrolling through the reverse time community, catching up on the latest buzz. A man stared at the screen, his expression contemplative, as he muttered a thoughtful hum to himself. Comments flooded in, with one particularly bold claim catching everyone's attention. Even Battler couldn't pull it off, they said. Battler, the pro reverse planet player himself, looked at the comments with a mix of anger and intrigue. Interesting indeed, he thought, his competitive spirit clearly provoked. A few days later, the second stream began, and the scene shifted to a serene forest. Yoo-hyun walked through the forest, deep in thought. Anonymous Viewer 62 had been absent from the last stream, leaving him wondering if they were waiting for something big. Just as Yoo-hyun was lost in thought, Yujin called out to him, looking as stunning as ever. The chat was hyped, praising the adaptive AI and calling Reverse Planet the greatest of all time. Yujin's popularity was no joke. She was definitely a top 3 NPC for sure. Yoo-hyun walked over to Yujin, who asked if he was nervous about his first field mission. Yoo-hyun responded that he was fine, even though it was unexpected. As soon as Yuhayan logged in, a new mission window popped up. A trainee agent already on a field mission? Well, the nice thing about it being a game was that he could skip the training part. As they walked through a gate, Yuhayan asked Yujin about the mission. She explained that they were going to eliminate every invader in the mirror world and then seal it up. Intel suggested that things might get intense. They arrived at a military base, and Yujin mentioned that it was another mission tossed their way by the corporations. They helped sometimes, so they let it slide, but it was still a hassle. Yujin sighed, explaining that the second the corporations thought it wasn't worth it, they just dumped it on them. Those corporate types were no different here, so they were dealing with insect types this time around. Yuhayan groaned, thinking about how the insect types were weak individually but came in swarms, making them a real pain to deal with. Just then, a soldier appeared, saluting sharply. He introduced himself as Jaehyun Park, a first-class sergeant, and asked if they were with the Otherworld Management Bureau. Yujin flashed her badge, confirming their affiliation and thanking him for his service. Jaehyun nodded, granting them clearance to enter. As the door creaked open, Yuhayan's eyes widened. He couldn't help but marvel at the sight before him, utterly amazed by what he saw. They began walking towards the portal, with Yuhayan mentioning it was his first time seeing a portal open up in an abandoned factory. Suddenly, it clicked. No wonder this place looked so familiar. A flashback hit him. He had seen something like it before in the other world, though he was pretty sure the one he saw before was medium-sized, not small like this one. A nod confirmed his suspicions, but doubt lingered. Yujin, ready to move, asked if they should head out. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared. Hyeonkil Choi, an awakener from Jumshin Electronics, greeted them with surprise, questioning why Yujin was there for such a minor operation. Yujin was taken aback, wondering why he was there. Hyeonkil expressed his own surprise, mentioning he never expected to be on the same mission as her. Yujin glared, accusing him of abandoning the mission and warning him not to have any hidden motives. Hyeonkil feigned hurt, acting like her words stung. Shifting his gaze to the main character, Hyeonkil asked if he was a new rookie. He then joked about not overworking for the bureau and suggested going corporate instead. Classic Hyeonkil. Yujin shot him a death stare, clearly not amused. The message was clear: back off. Hyeonkil quickly retreated, hands up in surrender. He jokingly called her scary and said he'd leave the mirror world to her. With a casual wave and a cheerful farewell, Hyeonkil strolled away, leaving Yuhayan to ponder the strange encounter. Yuhayan couldn't shake off the confusion, wondering who Hyeonkil really was. Yujin, however, seemed to have a different perspective. She recalled him as her first trainee agent who left on bad terms and had been spreading rumors about the bureau ever since. She felt like she needed a hit of something to calm her nerves. As Yujin pulled out a piece of candy, she continued to vent about Hyeonkil's betrayal. Songkyul, overhearing the conversation, chimed in with a hint of excitement, noting that this was the first time they were getting some real tea on Yujin and Hyeonkil's past. Naeon added to the conversation, mentioning that Yujin usually avoided talking about it, only hinting at some bad blood between them. Songkyul, still talking to Naeon, observed that the total adaptive AI seemed to be giving them a much richer story than before. Yujin, trying to lighten the mood, suggested they drop the gloomy talk and head inside. Yuhayan agreed, and with a sigh, they stepped through the portal. Hyeonkil, waiting outside, confirmed they were now inside the mirror world. Hyeonkil, looking a bit suspicious, announced it was time to get to work. 20 minutes later, the group found themselves fully immersed in the mirror world, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the group ventured deeper into the mirror world, an eerie silence filled the air, making them all a bit on edge. Suddenly, the main character found himself standing over a mysterious figure, a piece of candy lying ominously to the side. The vibes were definitely off. The group exchanged nervous glances, wondering what this strange scene meant. The mirror world was already full of surprises. The main character cautiously reached out, picking up the candy and examining it closely. It was like something out of a fairy tale, but not the fun kind. As he pocketed the candy, the group braced themselves for whatever weirdness the mirror world was about to throw at them next. No big deal, just another day in the life of adventurers. Rewinding a bit, the crew found themselves stepping through a portal, because why not add a little time travel to the mix? Yujin pointed out another portal right in front of them, explaining that it was a passageway to the mirror world. She warned that once they crossed, they would find themselves on the other side. The protagonist, Yuhayan, took it all in stride, noting that it was the same as the other world. Like groundbreaking stuff right there. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed. Because of course, it wouldn't be a proper adventure without a random, unexplained noise. Yuhayan was immediately on alert, sensing an anomaly. Because apparently anomalies are just a normal part of their day now. Yujin looked back, shouting for Yuhayan to be careful. Because, safety first and all that. But it was too late, as she suddenly got pulled into the portal. Classic. One moment she was there, and the next, she was gone, leaving him alone in the aftermath of the portal's chaos. Yuhayan glanced around, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. A dense forest had replaced the once familiar passage, and it was clear they had been separated. With a quick pull, his knife was in hand. He reasoned that it wasn't unusual for a passageway to cave in from external impact, but before he could dwell on that thought, something else demanded his attention. Spiders descended from above, their silken threads pulling them down with eerie precision. Yuhayan braced himself, ready for whatever came next. Yuhayan wasn't about to let those spiders crash his vibe. Lightning crackled at his fingertips, like he was about to drop the hottest mixtape of his life. With a move that screamed main character energy, he slammed his hand down. Cue the light show those spiders got zapped out of existence. No more eight-legged party crashers here. Meanwhile, Yujin was over in her own corner of chaos, taking down a mantis like it was just another Tuesday. She wasn't impressed. They just kept coming. And honestly, it was getting a little annoying. She wiped her mouth, glancing around at the endless forest. This place? Definitely more of a medium-sized nightmare than a small one. Whoever said size doesn't matter clearly never got lost in a magical forest. Something about this place felt off and Yujin wasn't here for it. Few indeed. Yujin was already having a bad day, and it was about to get worse. As she worried about Yuhayan, a man suddenly charged at her from behind. She barely had time to react as she noticed him at the last second. The man sliced her sides, and she let out a pained grunt. Ouch, that had to hurt. Yujin tried to fight back, but the man dodged her attack with a creepy chuckle. Not cool, dude. Yujin was shocked to see that it was Hyeonkil. She couldn't believe it. Hyeonkil casually mentioned he was on a covert mission. Like that was supposed to make it all better. As if things weren't bad enough, another man showed up. Hyeonkil claimed he was just following orders and told her not to take it personally. Yeah, right. Yujin had heard enough. She realized her wound was deep, and this was getting serious. She wasn't about to stick around for more of this nonsense. She knew she needed to get out of there, and fast. With a burst of energy, she shot an attack at someone, hoping to clear her escape route. But her escape plan was about to hit a snag. A soldier barely dodged her attack, using a boulder as a shield. The close call left him shouting in shock. Seizing the moment, she bolted, putting distance between her and the chaos. Hyeonkil wasn't having it though. He yelled at the other soldiers, calling them out for letting her slip away. The soldiers scrambled after her, determined to close the gap. She wasn't going down without a fight though. Gathering her energy, she prepared to unleash another attack. She spread her arms wide, channeling every ounce of her remaining energy. The air around her crackled with anticipation, and her eyes burned with determination. For a brief moment, there was a pause, a quiet before the storm. The soldiers watched, frozen in place, as she prepared to make her move. With a sudden twist, she turned around and unleashed her attack. The force of it sent a shockwave through the room, and she let out a fierce battle cry. The soldiers barely had time to react. The soldiers stopped dead in their tracks, completely caught off guard by the sheer power of her attack. It was like nothing they had seen before. Seizing the moment, she bolted, making a break for it while the soldiers were still stunned. Hyeonkil snapped out of it first, yelling at his team for not blocking the attack. Talk about a major fail on their part. Hyeonkil was furious, blaming his team for letting her slip away. The tension was real and the chase was on. The soldiers scrambled after her, determined not to let her get away. They moved quickly, pushing themselves to the limit. She didn't stop running until she found a small burrow to hide under. Panting and out of breath, she hoped she had lost them for good. Yujin let out a sigh of relief, realizing how close she had come to disaster. The centipede burrow had saved her, but her mind raced with questions. What was the corporation planning with this covert mission? Meanwhile, the protagonist was back in action, taking down giant bugs like a boss. Each strike was swift and precise, leaving no room for error. He moved with lightning speed, barely taking a second for each bug. It was almost like he was keeping score, and the count was already in the dozens. As he surveyed the area, his eyes caught sight of footprints. He could sense Eugen's presence, and it was clear something wasn't right. His instincts told him something must have happened to her. The footprints were erratic, like she had been running for her life. He noticed something peculiar among the chaos. It was a small detail, but it stood out like a neon sign in the dark. His eyes widened as he recognized the dash mark. That was definitely Eugen's doing. He knew he had to find her, and fast. He zooms off like a superhero who just chugged 3 energy drinks, determination fueling his every move. But trouble alert. Eugen was wrapped up by a giant centipede, and it was not looking like a fun spa treatment. Without hesitation, he knew he had to save her, and fast. He launched into action, attacking with the precision of a seasoned warrior. With a swift slash, the centipede's head was sent flying, like a bad guy in a cheesy action flick. He caught Eugen, who let out a startled yelp. Classic damsel in distress move, but hey, no judgment here. Eugen was looking rough, with deep cuts and exhaustion etched on her face. He asked if she was all right, concern lacing his voice. Eugen, barely recognizing him, whispered his name like she was trying out a new spell. He noticed the severity of her wounds and thought to himself that something was seriously off. Eugen wasn't some weakling who'd get taken down by a few bugs. Yuhayan stared at Eugen's wounds, his mind racing. Those weren't just any injuries. They had the unmistakable signature of an ability. And not just any ability, this was the work of someone powerful. As he pieced it together, a name flashed through his thoughts like a neon sign. There was only one awakener who could pull off something like this. Yuhayan asked Eugen if it was Hyeonkil Choi. Eugen, barely holding on, gave a weak nod. Yeah, it was him. Eugen explained that Hyeonkil Choi had followed them right after the anomaly. The timing was all kinds of wrong. Nayeon chimed in, her voice cutting through the tension. Nayeon pointed out that something wasn't right. Hyeonkil usually didn't make his move until much later in the story. Yuhayan thought to himself that Hyeonkil normally ambushes during the corporation arc. Nayeon wondered if it was because of the total adaptive AI. Songkyul, ever the observer, chimed in with his usual calm. At this point, they could only guess what was happening. A hidden story was unfolding, and it was getting interesting. He suggested they keep watching. Back to Eugen. She looked like she was on the verge of collapse. She managed to lose them, but there was no telling when they'd be back. She was hesitant to use her ability, fearing it might expose their position. Eugen told Yuhayan he should run away. Yuhayan told her to hide there and that he would be back after dealing with them. Eugen yelled out to Yuhayan, warning him that Hyeonkil was a veteran awakener and he couldn't take him on alone. Yuhayan calmly told her not to worry. He assured her that he had a plan. Classic Yuhayan, always with the plans. Meanwhile, Hyeonkil and his crew were searching for Eugen. They were confused, wondering where she had gone. Hyeonkil ordered his team to sweep the whole valley, convinced that Eugen couldn't have gone far in her state. He decided to head down and find his target himself. As Hyeonkil turned, the tension in the air was palpable. Suddenly, Hyeonkil attacked with his fire, catching Yuhayan off guard. Yuhayan barely had time to react, shouting for him to wait. Yuhayan barely managed to dodge the attack, feeling the heat singe his clothes. Talk about a close call. Hyeonkil suddenly stopped his attack, leaving Yuhayan sweating bullets and looking like he just saw a ghost. Yuhayan let out a sigh of relief, but the tension was still thick enough to cut with a knife. Yuhayan tried to play it cool, acting all weak and confused. He stumbled through an explanation about a passageway collapsing and losing Eugen. But let's be real, his acting skills were not Oscar-worthy. Someone in the shadows was low-key impressed, though. They couldn't see Yuhayan's face, but they just knew his performance was top-tier. Hyeonkil patted Yuhayan's shoulder, but it wasn't exactly a friendly gesture. He called Yuhayan out on his bluff, making it clear he wasn't buying any of it. Before Yuhayan could even blink, Hyeonkil was on the move again, attacking with a smirk. He casually mentioned something about a short nap, and Yuhayan knew he was in deep trouble. But plot twist, Yuhayan pulled a fast one and stabbed Hyeonkil, leaving the latter looking more confused than a chihuahua in a room full of mirrors.